picturesque town of Willowbrook, there was a cemetery with a chilling reputation. The townsfolk had whispered tales of eerie occurrences and unsettling experiences in the true cemetery for generations. It was said that the cemetery held more than just the remains of the departed. It was a place where the boundary between the living and the dead blurred. One cool, moonlit night, 3 friends, Emily, James and Sarah, decided to venture into true cemetery. They were drawn by the stories they had heard, curious to see if there was any truth to the eerie tales that surrounded the place. The entrance to the cemetery was marked by a wrought iron gate that groaned as they pushed it open. The trio stepped into the sprawling graveyard, their flashlights revealing rows of weathered tombstones, each bearing the names of long-forgotten souls. The atmosphere was heavy, and a chilling breeze rustled the trees, casting eerie shadows on the tombstones. As they explored deeper into the cemetery, they began to hear faint whispers in the wind. It was as if the voices of the deceased were trying to communicate with them, sharing stories of lives long past. Goosebumps prickled their skin and unease settled in their hearts, but they pressed on. Their journey took them to an old, dilapidated mausoleum at the center of the cemetery. The door creaked open, revealing an ancient, dimly lit chamber. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling, and the air was thick with a musty odor. As they entered, they noticed a strange, cold mist that seemed to swirl around them. It was then that they heard a voice, distant but clear, calling their names. Terrified, they turned to leave, but the door had slammed shut behind them. Panic set in as they realized they were trapped inside the mausoleum. The voice grew closer, and they could now see the silhouette of a figure shrouded in darkness. It was a young woman, her eyes hollow and mournful. She spoke of a tragic love story, her voice trembling with sorrow. She had died under mysterious circumstances, and her lover, unable to bear the grief, had taken his own life. The couple's spirits had remained bound to the mausoleum, and they longed for a way to find peace. With trembling hands, the friends searched for clues, uncovering a locket that contained a picture of the ill-fated couple. The locket, it seemed, was the key to helping the spirits find closure. As they held the locket, they began to hear the ghostly couple's voices more clearly, pleading for help to set their souls free. In a moment of bravery, Emily recited an ancient incantation she had read in a book about the supernatural. The mausoleum shook, and the mist enveloped the spirits. The ghostly lovers' forms dissipated into the cold air, and the darkness that had filled the room began to recede. The door to the mausoleum swung open, and the trio stumbled out, gasping for breath. The eerie atmosphere that had hung over the cemetery seemed to lift, and a sense of peace washed over them. True Cemetery was no longer a place of dread and sorrow. It was a place where lost souls had finally found their way to the afterlife. As Emily, James, and Sarah left the cemetery, they knew they had uncovered the truth behind the tales of the true cemetery. They had witnessed the restless spirits and helped them find their long-awaited peace. The town of Willowbrook began to embrace the cemetery once more, and the stories of its horrors started to fade into obscurity. The 3 friends, forever changed by their extraordinary encounter, kept the locket as a reminder of the night they crossed the boundary between the living and the dead. They understood that not all ghostly encounters were malevolent, and some spirits merely sought release from the tormented existence that had bound them for so long.